books in a lifetime. That's not impressive to some people. However, that was back in the 90s. He was recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we personally know that he's been writing still since then, still reading his books. Thousands. Not saying just the books that he's written, but the classes that he's taught that CDs are out on. Classes that he's taught that cassettes have been put out on, that the cassettes haven't been made into books, that the CDs haven't been made into books. Classes that he's taught us on Tamaray that was never recorded on a CD, never printed in a book, never recorded on a tape, and never heard again. So now, no way possible can anyone, and I'm going to say this and even open it up, can anyone do greater than that? He's answered every question under and now above the sun on every subject known to man. Asked the question, he knew the answer and gave us more. And weeks later, next week after next, there was a whole book about it, 237 pages, a book. Pop said, who is God? Pop wrote a book entitled, Who is God? That thing is like, wow, are there black devils? Are there black devils? He answered that. A book came out about that thing. It still exists. Are there black devils? I'll tell you about black devils. You want to know about them. Are Mission Earth and extraterrestrials involved? Are there extraterrestrials on the planet? Extraterrestrial Mission Earth involvement? Wrote a book that thick about it. He just write a book. But you ask a question, he write books about it. That's what he do. So now to ask one, is there anyone saying that there's someone smarter than him? Come on now. Like I said, you entertain us, come on now, dog. Come on, really, do you think there's a being smarter than that? And if he is, what would he know that he don't know? Our master teacher, I remember him asking, someone asked him, do he know everything? He says, I only possess 76 trillion years of knowledge. No, that's not everything. He said, it's enough for you to need. It's enough that you need. I have the answers to everything you need to transform from mortality to immortality. And someone said to him about Anu, about that which Anu knows. He says, I only know a piece of a portion of a part of a fraction of what Anu knows. Really? Like you need someone that knows more than Dr. Malachi Z. York. Are you expecting someone to come after him? You really want to wait around for another 25,000 years, as was stated? A reformer comes, or a warner comes, or a guide comes every 25,000 years. Stick around and wait. You wait for the next one then, if you're expecting someone to come after him. If you don't make it this time, as we said earlier, with a master teacher being sent to you, a spiritual guide being sent to you, a warring angel to make war on your behalf, with all the books you need to actually open them and reread, restudy, and reinform your soul at any point in time. If you need someone other than that, he is not for you. He is not yours. So no, there's no new guy, new girl, new person coming after our master teacher. He's not. Now, don't believe me? Stick around and see. If you all take time to actually read all the various books our master teachers put out, and even if you don't have access to some of the older ones, as well as please gain access to some of the newer ones, because he's writing more and more and more and more and more. And as these questions are being asked, answers, of course, being given, our master teacher is writing books, like the whole series of books called The Master's Secret is out, Pt.3 is out, Actual Facts are out. And these are things that people still have yet to come forth and say, aha, he's wrong. They'll say, well, he didn't write it, and we're like, no, he did. Now, you're saying he didn't, good, prove him wrong. Write a book showing, and people write books all the time. You know how easy it is to write books? Here's how easy it is. First Amendment of the Constitution, freedom of speech. Write a book. Write a book showing, proving he's wrong. Go ahead, I dare you, try. People have tried for years. When I say years, since the 70s, they have tried for so long to try to prove him wrong and have not successfully did it. I remember a fool named Abu Amina Bilal Phillips wrote a book called The Ansar Cult in America. 179 pages or 183 pages, something like that. I can't remember.
It's close to it.
Close to it, though, give or take a page. And our master teacher, in turn, wrote a 409-page book called The Ansar Cult Rebuttal to the Slanderers, upon which that book was given free. Now, I got to tell you all the truth of what occurred with me because I was born and raised a Muslim. So back in the 80s, in the late 90s, early 90s, I received the Ansar Cult in America book because the Imam knew I was reading the Ansar Doctrine, 360 Questions Asked a Sunni Orthodox Muslim. I had to ask the Imam, hey Imam, did you know? I didn't know whether or not he knew as a Muslim. I figured he could better as an Imam teach all the other Muslims than I could. So let me let the Imam know this. And he said, brother, and he told me never to come into the masjid no more with those books that Kafir, Imam, Dr. York, etc. Imam Isa is a such and such. And he asked me, did I ever hear about this book? Showed me the Ansar Cult in America book. I said, no, the Ansar Cult in America. And I started broke the seal on reading it, and I didn't have the money to pay for it, so he gave it to me, told me to bring the money later, and I did. And I'm sitting here reading the book, and I'm thinking, no, it can't be true. Oh no. And I'm reading the book, oh my goodness, no, wow. Oh man, I'm reading the book, sad as it was, having previously ordered 3 books from the original tents of Kedar back in Bushwick Avenue. So I'm sitting here waiting one day, reading the books, reading the Ansar Cult in America book, sad, thinking it can't be true. Might be, but can't be. Mail lady comes to the door, hands me a box, the original tents of Kedar. We are sad to inform you that the 3 books that we ordered previously, we didn't have. We've replaced the 3 books with 3 books that you ordered replacement, because they sent me something saying why the beard, our symbol, and another book wasn't ready, wasn't available, and therefore I had to send them another order in with 3 other books. I get the box, open the box, and those 3 new books that I ordered was in there, and they sent me a free copy of the Ansar Cult Rebuttal to the Slanderers. That book, I wanted to break the seal so bad in that moment and read it. I said, no, let me go ahead and finish reading this Ansar Cult. I did not go to sleep that night. I remember waking up, realizing, damn, it's light outside. I read that book, and the very first 3, 4, 5 pages destroyed the Ansar Cult Rebuttal to the Slanderers book. Follow? So people can write books all they want. No one writes books better than our master teacher writes books. We dare you to write one against him. We dare you to write one against him. You follow? We're going to pass the class to Huntui Sanan Hatep Harar.
Hatep. Okay, this next question is from Stephen Cole. He asks, at what point does the soul and spirit enter the newborn baby? And does the spirit and soul choose who they want to come through? And if so, why would anyone want to come through a parents that, let's say, is in a poor country and have less than desirable life? What's the purpose of life for them and us?
All right. This is one of the reasons why, as I explained earlier, that we have been having sex, creating children improperly, right? Again, when 2 people come together, what they're actually doing is a process that is similar to cloning. They take 2 cells, merge into 1 cell. So their families are actually merging together. The woman who is the carrier of the mitochondria DNA actually carries on that. The mitochondria DNA isn't mixed. When the sperm cell goes into the egg, the tail breaks off. And in the tail carries the mitochondria of the male. It doesn't mix like nuclear DNA. Prior to the ejaculation of the male, the sperm actually travels up the spinal column, gets into the brain, and actually is charged by the ba, or the soul. You follow? Comes back down and actually is ejaculated into the woman. Right? This is overstood even in metaphysics. You follow? Once that egg penetrates into the sperm penetrates into the egg, that is when the ka is born. Follow? That is a spirit. Ka in ancient Egypt, we know a spirit. Ba, soul in Egypt. As the child develops and is born and takes his first breath, that's when the rawa is born, or the soul, because you actually have a ba soul and a Ra soul. And that Wu-nuwaup is what is known in the Aramaic Hebrew language as Ruach, which they termed as the wind or the spirit of God moving across the waters. You follow? That first breath you take is when the Rawa is born. And then as the child develops and actually reaches the age of 7, which the master teacher refers to as the age of imagination, he develops his nafas, or his personality that he carries on throughout life. That spirit is born. You follow? So through those, there's a Pt.3 called soul, spirit. And it's actually in the Nuwaupic language is Ba, Rawa, Ka'a, Nafas.
Wow. All right.
You follow? That's why it's soul, spirit. Because in our language, there are more than one soul and more than one spirit.
Okay.
You follow?
This next question is from someone named Mitchell Butler. He asked, is the barotheric gland inside the supreme gland lodge?
The barotheric gland is a gland that we had at one point in our development where we were able to communicate and use the full potential of our brain capacity. The barotheric gland was a gland that secreted a hormone known as mahkudet, right? And that actually unlocked not only portions of our brain, but also unlocked portions of our DNA.
Okay.
You follow?
Right.
And it actually activated what is known in science as junk DNA. The DNA they have no idea why it's there, what it's used for. You follow? So that because the reason why there's a hormone missing in the body, and this is why the master teacher said study the human body, because certain hormones, certain cells in your body, as well as glands, as well as different parts of the body have receptors for certain hormones. You follow?
Right.
The hormone for the mafkudet is missing because the gland that produces it is missing. Now, is it in the Supreme Grand Lodge? No. But what the master teacher is trying to do is get you to the point where you're not only where you're able to have that gland reinserted, as he said in the here in the lower part of the underneath the chin,
Submental area.
Exactly, submental area. Thank you. But before it is reinserted, you have to do what the master teacher prescribes in order to be able to use it properly. Because what the barotheric gland does, it unlocks higher senses of intuition, right? Telepathy, psychometry, which is actually the reading the thought patterns that are left upon certain objects and when a person touches it or handles it, as well as clairvoyance, which is clear sight. You follow? At this state, because we have been perverted and corrupted with the images of the beast, if we had certain abilities, we would misuse it. So what the master teacher does is create certain orders, so literally we would have order. You follow?
Right.
In the chaos. So the Supreme Grand Lodge is one of those orders that the master teacher has created to get you back to your correct state.
Right.
You follow? So what a lot of people want to do is circumvent certain things that the master teacher has given us, and say, no, well, I'm gonna do this, but I don't do that because I don't like that. But I'm gonna do this right here.
They want to pick and choose.
And I ain't gonna do that right there. You follow? But we have to realize that as a doctor, he lays out a certain prescription. And in that prescription, the Supreme Grand Lodge for the brothers is part of that prescription.
Okay. All right. His next question, he said, what if I already know the order and just need to learn how to recognize my true brothers in the spiritual world? What part of the Egyptian order do I need to go to?
Again, as a Nuwaupian, right, we acknowledge who our God in the flesh is. You follow? And people, when we say things like that, because we come from a lot of us come from a religious background, we're afraid to say it. We'll acknowledge an Allah as God. We have no idea where Allah is. We have no idea if Allah even exists, but we call Allah God because it's safe to say Allah, who I don't know who He is. He created me. He created the heavens and the earth. You follow?
Yeah.
We'll call Jesus God. And we acknowledge that Jesus was born of a woman. You follow? Was in the flesh. They even killed him. They murdered this man, according to the story. And we'll call him God and say, He's my Savior. Jesus did this and that. When really, there's no evidence that He ever existed. You follow? No evidence that the story is real. And for instance, I can prove right now that there wasn't a man named Jesus who existed 2,000 years ago.
How?
One simple fact.
How?
The letter J didn't exist until about the 1500s.
Wow.
So there was no man named Jesus 2,000 years ago.
So how do you pronounce his name without the J then? That's
Exactly. No, the bigger question is, who the hell is Jesus? If the name didn't exist 2,000 years ago, who the hell is Jesus? Why am I calling on Him? The point I'm making is that we can acknowledge all of these different things as God and give our praises and admiration to, but when a being who manifests in the physical, who we can see, touch, experience His works, see the things that He's done right before our eyes, we are afraid to acknowledge Him as God. See, this is part of the problem in this society, is that we have adopted the ways of the Caucasian who worships death.
wow.
And I say that because a person only becomes great when they die.
Isn't that strange?
You don't get a holiday until you're dead. You follow? It's not, I can't wear, they don't acknowledge the greatness of, for instance, if you're an artist, your art becomes more valuable when you're dead.
You're dead, yeah.
When you could do nothing to affect life at all, you become a thing worth mentioning. They have memorials for you when you're dead.
He was a great man.
You follow? So because we have adopted the ways of this society, we are afraid to say a person who is still alive and still able to do great things is great. We do it in sports.
Yeah.
You follow? We'll talk about Michael Jordan all day.
All day.
You follow? Or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James. We're doing it in sports, but in things that really matter, you know, the liberation of our people, the advancement of our race, we won't say it.
Right.
We're afraid to say that. But the point is that our God has given us things for us to get back to greatness. You follow?
Right.
And in getting back to greatness, there are certain orders. So the reality is if you can't follow order, then you're out of order.
Which is chaos.
Which is chaos.
Okay.
So if you can try to avoid these things, but how do you know that thing which is part of your transformation isn't in that order?
Good question.
You won't know because you won't get it.
Okay.
Right? The certain orders were designed to keep that which is sacred secret. You follow? So if it's sacred, this is a lot of people miss. They understand ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, there were mystery schools.
True.
Follow? In order to get into those mystery schools, you had to give up your entire life where you were to join the mystery schools in Egypt.
That's true. That's right.
You know, it wasn't that, you know, you took the bus down there and came to Egypt and then at 5 o'clock you went back home. You gave up your life to sit at the feet of the masters,
Live that way.
to live that way, and weren't, at certain degrees, weren't disseminated for years. You follow?
Right.
We understand that for ancient Egypt, but in this day and time, you know,
We want
you
it
can't
now.
get a nigga to get on the bus.
Why can't I get it now?
You know what I'm saying? So there are certain, we don't look at things in a realistic perspective in terms of what we have and how accessible it is to us, but we don't want to sacrifice. You follow?
Follow.
We don't want to give, and no one's asking you to give your life up. Ain't nobody asking that. Let's just clear that up. But if it's something that's worth having, it's worth sacrificing for.
This is true. This is
You
true.
follow? There's certain things that you have to give up. Just be real. If you plan, you can't be in the world and of the world and still profess to say, I'm a Nuwaupi.
All right.
You follow? There's certain things you have to give up. The master teacher prescribed a way of dress for us. You follow? There's certain things he's prescribed in order to not only help you, but you become a help for those who need help.
Right.
You follow? You have, as a Nuwaupian, you are to be a teacher. Because you were taught.
Each one teach one.
Each one teach one. So you have to be an example of Wu-nuwaup, example of the master teacher, and go out in the world. So I guarantee you, because it happens to me all the time. People come to and ask me, who are you? What are you?
What are you?
Why you had that on?
Dress different.
You follow? Or they'll come to me and say, Assalamu alaikum. You follow? And, you know, something depending on how I feel, it depends on how I respond.
Yeah, right? I know
Say,
that
sometimes
feeling.
I like, Nukbutim Muslimun. And they'll be like,
What language is that?
Nuke Butim Muslimun. Or Nuke Tim Muslimun. Right? I'm not a Muslim. Right? And that opens a dialogue. So now, again, you as an individual don't convert anyone. Let's be real, to keep your egos down. No matter how much you articulate the doctrine, you are not converting them. It's the information.
It's true.
Right? So what the master teacher comes and gives, you may articulate it differently than I, but it is the information. Your objective is to spread the word,
Impart
the good news. Wu-nuwaup. You follow? So you have to follow the prescription of the master to cure your sickness and to help cure the sickness of the world.
All right.
And those certain orders are part of that prescription.
Okay. This is our last online question for the night. It's from someone who calls himself Ultimate Muscle 25. It's coming from one of our online class. I think it was November 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, in the video, the brother was talking about Inky creating the Caucasian. How did Inky create the Caucasian race? I thought Yakub, the large-headed scientist, did that.
All right. When you're talking about the creation of the Caucasian, again, as the master teacher explained, the beings who are known as the Anunnaki, right? He explained to you, or to us, that in your Bible, the beings who are known as Elohim were really Anunnaki. You follow? And he said that those Anunnaki are the ones who were responsible for the creation of the Wu-nuwaup, right? Or that being called Adam in your Bible, right? That being called Adam, again, as we explained earlier, is that red ruddy race who Inky and his brother Enlil were responsible for part of that creation. In fact, Inky is the one who went to Africa, Afaf Ka, and sat under and talked to Sekhemtet as well as Pt.3 to learn the secrets of the graftation to take it back to Mesopotamia to perfect that graftation of mixing in the genes to create the Adamite. Now this being called the Adamite was also mixed in with beings from Pleiades, right? And ultimately became this red, ruddy, pale race known as the Adamites. So Enki had a part in that, of that creation, because he actually went to Africa and got the science from the scientists of Sekhemtet and Pt.3 to take it back to Mesopotamia to create and graft this being known as the Adamite. Follow? So again, a lot of this is explained in a lot of the Pt.3, especially the Pt.3 18 plus 18 plus 1 equals 37 genes of mitochondria DNA. It is explained in there thoroughly about that process and the graftation and the mixing of the not only the mafhudet, but as well as the leprosy, which would ultimately resulted in your Caucasian race. All right? With that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to question and answer class here at Pt.3. Again, we have this class every Friday, 7:30 p.m. We invite everyone to come out, ask your questions about science, religion, whatever. We as students of the master teacher are more than welcome for any and all questions. So again, thank you for coming out. Wu-nuwaup.
Go.